Using the link in the description to get your first month completely free, HIDIVE lets you watch hundreds of anime TV series, uncensored content, OVAs, and live-action shows on PCs, mobile phones, and consoles. It has a diverse library of exclusive content, Legend of the Galactic Heroes, and Big O, including dubbed content on a regular basis. Click the link in the description for more. Hello everyone, my name is SeaTactics, otherwise known as Ben. So it turns out there was a lot of bad isekai airing each season every year that just aren't good. Because for every ReZero we get, there's a million isekai cheat magicians and Arifuretas. So, sifting through this hellzone of a genre, I decided that I would create a curated list both from me and from my community. I want to bring you guys a quintessential guide to isekai anime, giving you only the best anime to watch for this genre. So, let's start from zero. Anyways, real quick, we have to identify what the isekai genre is. The isekai genre is not just the fantasy genre, but it does have a lot in common. Both commonly are associated with one another since they usually involve a fantasy setting in some form, but isekai is identified by one common trope, and that's the main character being transported, reborn, or trapped inside of another world. That's pretty much it. That's isekai anime. So what I decided to do for this list is do a basic list video, but because others have voted on them through a community tab poll or Twitter poll, I will talk about those during each of them as well. But for now, let's get into the anime. I think it's fitting Rising of the Shield Hero is first on this list because honestly, it's the most recent example of a good isekai. Shield Hero's strengths are its characters and how well they are written inside the context of the plot. Now, Fumi's road to redemption is easily one of the best, if not one of the best story arcs in all of the isekai genre that I've personally seen. It also has one of the most memorable isekai villains in the genre, with mine Melromark being a character most of the internet hated, including myself. And how many villains do you get in any form of entertainment where you actually hate the villain on that level? It's not often, and it's for this reason alone the anime deserves to be the first mentioned on the list. And coming in second place on my YouTube poll, The Rising of the Shield Hero. Once again, this anime is really good and one of the few isekai for many to reach that level of quality. At 28% of the total vote on the YouTube poll, it's obvious that Shield Hero has left an impression. We'll talk about the Twitter poll in just a second and how it performed there. It can't be a list without Konosuba, one of the best comedies in recent memory, and the reason for this is because the series seemingly so easily parodies the most popular isekai anime like ReZero. It subverts your expectations of the anime you've seen from this genre, but what it does the best is the characters. These characters here are really bad people. Kazuma uses people, especially the people in his group, but also dropkicks women for fun. Megumin blows everything up, causing havoc. Aqua is self-centered and a slob, and Darkness is a masochist, and anything more is better left unsaid with her. Everything just works together, and the comedy in this show is hilarious. Surprisingly enough, this wasn't mentioned as much in any of the polls, only garnering 2 comments, one from the YouTube poll and one from the Twitter poll. But oddly enough, both of them saying that Konosuba is probably the best isekai, which is quite interesting. ReZero is one of the more complex isekai on this list, with the original source material being so long it's taken almost 2 whole years for the ReZero podcast to cover just Arc 4. ReZero is a very special anime to me and a lot of others, as it's probably the first isekai to do the isekai thing well. Having an extensive world lore, extensive character development, it's likely neck and neck with Shield Hero for being the best traditional isekai anime. Enough couldn't be said about how well ReZero was written and how important it is to the isekai genre. And while it's popular for the wrong reasons sometime, with the whole Rimmer Emilia thing, it's one of the best of all time in terms of isekai. So ReZero pretty much dominated both the Twitter and YouTube polls. On the YouTube version of the poll, 48% of people voted for ReZero to be the best isekai out of a total of 45 votes. This is impressive, and it also may have a bias on my part, since I've been covering ReZero for nearly 2 years. But what is more interesting is that on Twitter, ReZero and Shield Hero were neck and neck, with both having 31% of the votes at 13 votes. Yes, while it is just 13 votes on Twitter, it kinda does reinforce my reasoning that ReZero and Shield Hero are kind of neck and neck. My final mention on this list Inuyasha is one of the original Isekai anime to do it well before Re:Zero did. Before Re:Zero, there was this quaint anime from the 90s which introduced a whole previous generation to Isekai anime. While it may not hold up as well today due to its age, it's kind of like the grandpappy of modern Isekai. It deserves, I think, a mention on this list. As a kid who grew up watching this anime, it can't be understated how important of an anime this is for the genre. And people on Twitter and YouTube seem to kind of agree. 9% of the vote is Inuyasha. Obviously, being much older, this seemed natural to not get a major vote. And out of the 13 votes on Twitter, it only got 15% of the vote. But it still holds a place in my heart, because who could forget Kagome telling Inuyasha to sit? It's beautiful. Some other mentions on this poll go to Visions of Escaflowne with 7% of the vote. While the anime combines a lot of genres, it's largely gone forgotten outside of its recent redub by Funimation. And it makes sense. Visions of Escaflowne is a very heavily flawed show, but it is still, to me, pretty good. It's also got Yoko Kanno on it, so, you know. Some other ones that got mentioned were the 12 Kingdoms on the Twitter poll. It seems very interesting, so I'll probably have to give that one a shot. Same goes for Log Horizon, when we got a couple of mentions in the YouTube poll as well for it. And I realize the way I'm going about this video may be somewhat flawed by nature with the voting in particular, but I think it's fun to get my subscribers participating in some of these videos when I can. And I think this video shows a good to solid list of at least the most popular Isekai and a couple that are a bit out there, but are just as good, if not a notch below. This video probably came about when I tried to find all of the high-rated Isekai anime on my anime list, but to my surprise, there were very little out there to watch that were actually good. This, to me, is a bad thing, as I think this genre could do a lot more than what it's currently doing with the generic anime concepts that appeal to only a very small sect of the fanbase. So if you find this list helpful, then give this video a like, click on some of these videos if they interest you, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell, and I have a Patreon where you can support me on the $1 tier and above and get access to literally everything for just $1. That's a deal, in my opinion. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.